because I've had some Alchemist like request assets. Like I can do that for
Okay.
you guys. Okay,
That'd be
let's.
awesome. Yeah.
All right, we are now live and let us start this webinar. All right. Oh, and I will also throw it in the chat for people to.
Okay. Are people in yet?
Let's see. Yep, they're starting to roll in. I just have
Okay.
to change the option where everybody can chat. All right. Hi, everybody. Hold on. Let me just, everyone. All right. There we go. Yeah, we still have some people coming in. Hi, guys.
Okay.
Hi, Maria. Good to see you.
And Anthony, excited to be here.
All right. I guess while we wait, we can wait about 2 more minutes while people are still trickling in. I still see some people logging in. But yeah,
Okay.
feel free to drop in where you guys are watching from. Okay, we got Colombia. Hi. Hi, Ghostman. Good to see you again. India. Perfect. Nigeria. Okay, Spain. I love seeing how
Same.
there's like alchemists from like different places.
Yeah, it's
Shub,
cool.
Shub, I hope I'm saying your name right. Thank you so much for joining the workshop. I'll get to your DM um once this is over. Oh, Malaysia. Okay.
Oh, Kazakhstan.
Wow.
Nice.
Wait, so where are you based out of, Anthony?
I'm based out of Kansas City, but my
Oh,
family's from like Mexico and Spain.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what is your background?
I mean, I'm Hispanic, but so on I guess my grandpa's side, like his grandfather was from Spain, but his grandmother is like native Mexican, and then same for my grandma. So like I just identify as Hispanic. But they came to
Okay.
America to work on the railroad like 100 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Amazing. So now I know I can speak Spanish too because I'm half Mexican, half Korean, and my family's in
Okay.
Arizona now.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. So man, so the part of Mexico my family's from is like Guanajuato, and then like from Spain they're from like Basque, and they're
Okay.
from like Real Madrid. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we have Esther. Hi, Esther. All right. So, we'll just allow more people to come in after, but officially wanted to welcome everybody to another workshop given by one of our alchemists named Anthony. You also might have seen him on Discord, known as Sashimi Boy.
Yeah, that's right.
Love that name. Um, so yes, he has been so nice enough just to share a lot of his knowledge and wisdom as he has a lot of background in data analytics. And I don't want to, give too much away, but Anthony would love if you could introduce yourself, just like give a little bit of information on your background and also
Yeah.
what to expect for the workshop. And yeah, we'll have this recorded. Oh, and also if you're an alchemist, if you want to take a screenshot of your favorite moment or things that you learned from Anthony during this and post it onto Twitter and tag alchemist_.hq and use the hashtag Covalent Alchemist, then yes, you will get some XP or some extra Cobalt or maybe even a month free of Nitro Plus. But yeah, okay, I'll let you take it away, Anthony. Thank you.
Yep. Appreciate it. Thank you, Jackie. So yeah, my name is Anthony Loya. I'm from Kansas City. I started in data in 2016 for an Oracle subsidiary called Cerner Corporation, which is a healthcare IT company based out of Kansas City. After that, I started in banking and fintech back in like 2019, and then I started to really get into crypto around that time. Then kind of in 2021, I delved deeper into blockchain analytics. So I started doing bounties for like Numeraire or like Numer.ai, if any of you are familiar. And then I did bounties for layer three. And currently I still freelance for like layer three and cryptics. Back in 2022, actually, I was Blockworks Research's first data analyst, and I worked there for like 9 months. And then just continue doing freelance work for cryptics, notional, and layer three. So that's kind of on my professional side. So on my like kind of education side, I got my master's in data science and analytics with an emphasis on human-centered science design from the University of Missouri. And I graduated like back in 2023. So yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen now, Jackie. Let's see. All right. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so we'll dive deeper. We'll keep this high level, just so we're all on the same page. So kind of let's see. Yeah. So what we're going to discuss today, blockchain fundamentals, understanding blockchain data, an introduction to data science and analytics, analyzing blockchain data, so using Increment and the unified API. And also we'll briefly cover some advanced topics and trends. And then leading it off, we'll talk about tips for success for those of you who want to kind of enter more into the data side of crypto. So uh, the definition, right? A decentralized digital ledger that records transactions across many nodes. So this is what a blockchain essentially is. And the origins of the blockchain, as most of you probably know, is was started by kind of a pseudonymous entity called Satoshi Nakamoto. I don't know if many of you know this, but Hal Finney was the first person to receive a Bitcoin from Satoshi Nakamoto. So the problems that blockchains solve and attempt to solve are like transparency, security, also like giving access to my financial services without a central authority. Supposed to reduce transaction costs, make everything traceable, and make like data sovereign. So some key components of a blockchain, obviously like the transactions, blocks, the miners, the nodes, and this is all to ensure a secure and decentralized ledger. So some consensus mechanisms are like proof of work and proof of stake, which enable distributed networks to agree and validate transactions without that central authority. So there are about three types of blockchain, so public, private, and consortium, and they all kind of have different needs, and there's a balance that they try to achieve between openness, control, and collaboration. So some that you may be aware of, some types of blockchains, like EVMs, L2, sidechains, Validiums. I don't want to get too deep on this, but so understanding blockchain data. So the blockchain comprises of interconnected blocks, which forms a chain. Uh, these blocks are in a sequence of blocks, and each block contains a list of transactions that's validated by network participants known as nodes. So some transactional data includes like sender, receiver, amount, and timestamp, which we'll see as we kind of get further into this presentation. The data is encrypted and stored within a block, and once a transaction is confirmed in the network, it becomes a permanent part of the block, and this provides a transparent and traceable history of those transactions. A smart contract is a self-executing contract with terms of the agreement written within the code. And since this operates on the blockchain, you can see what's happening. Uh, and all parties are kind of insured with trust, and that the execution outcome will be externally verified. So now we're going to get more into like the data science and analytics part of the presentation. So the fundamentals of data science involves collecting, cleaning, analyzing, and interpreting large data sets to uncover patterns. So some tools and techniques that we typically use are like Python and R for data manipulation, which I focus more on Python. R is really for like high volume, like millions and millions of rows of data, but it's still usable if those of you are comfortable using it. We use SQL for database management, which is what Increment uses, and we'll get deeper into that as we go on. So I also use block scanners for research and validation, and we could use machine learning utilizing like Python or R packages for predictive modeling. So some applications of this in the blockchain. So analyzing transaction patterns for product development, which I've have experience for working with layer three, usage, users, attribution, fraud detection, like market trends and network health analysis, and like much more, right? Possibilities are endless. Um, so defining data science. So data science is an interdisciplinary field. We use like the scientific method, processes, algorithms, and systems to extract knowledge and insight from like structured and unstructured data. the goal of data science to uncover meaningful patterns and make those data-driven decisions with what we uncover. And for analytics, analytics is like a systematic computational type of discipline that utilizes data or statistics, which is like an integral part of data science. So there's four types of uh, analytics that we use, which is descriptive, which is what happened, diagnostic, which is why it happened, predictive, which is what will or may happen, and prescriptive, which is what how we can make something happen. And as we get more into like the SQL side of things, so SQL stands for structured query language, and people pronounce it differently, SQL or SQL. I usually just say SQL. It's the standard language for relational databases and data manipulation. So the purpose of SQL is to insert, query, update, and delete data within a database, and this makes it a cornerstone for data analysis and management. So some varieties of SQL. So many people don't know this, and I was surprised kind of uh, when I got kind of started in the industry. Like people didn't really know like there are varieties of SQL. So SQL follows a standard, and many databases have their own variety or flavors. So to accommodate specific features or functionalities, there's SQL types like MySQL, PostgreSQL, SQLite, Microsoft SQL Server, Oracle, NoSQL, and like the list goes on. Increment though utilizes ClickHouse database management system, and that's ANSI SQL, so it's ANSI SQL, and each type of SQL has its own functions for what kind of the end result needs to be. So, kind of at a high level, when you're using SQL, there's some things to keep in mind. So, querying, manipulation, aggregation, joins, unions, and some practical applications for that is like to fetch a data set, to join and combine two different tables, and then aggregate that data in a summary of results. So these are like some basic functions. So for like data querying, we have select for data retrieval and where for filtering. For data manipulation, which most of us probably won't utilize this. This is more on like the data engineering side, but like insert for adding data, updating for modifying data, and delete for removing data. But like I said, like most of us won't use that. So data aggregation, functions like count, sum, average, min, max. So like central tendency for summarizing data. We'll also using join operations. So there's like different types of join operations to get different types of results as you research and analyze the different type of smart contracts or ecosystems that you're involved with or want to be more involved with. So these are like based on two or more rows on a related column. And union is an interesting one. So a cool thing about unions is so joining data kind of places data together uh, linearly, but unions really place data on top of each other. And the important thing to remember about unions is like each side of the union has to have the equal amount of arguments, or the union won't work. Um, so some practical applications for this is like demonstrating how to fetch data and combine data and aggregate data. So I used increment for this presentation. So I'll go ahead and kind of show you what I got here. So this is kind of a simple query for transaction counts for Layer 3's new base data product, which they just released early February. So this is a project that I had some involvement in with the Layer 3 team. And one cool thing about increment is that it is multi-chained. So cubes work on multiple different chains, which some other like data providers don't necessarily have indexed, but increment and Covalent does have a lot of the chains that cubes uses index, which is super awesome. But I kept this high level. So what we're doing here is we're grouping the date by the number of transactions per day. So this is a daily count of transactions. So the contract that we're using is cubes. The querying style or the functions we're using are select for retrieval from, which states the table that we're retrieving data from, and the where and filtering clause. This just tells us like what we want to fetch. So like we're fetching from base mainnet, and we're looking at the recipient, which is the base the cube's base contract, and we're aggregating the data by count and grouping it by the first parameter, which is the date, and then this summarizes the transactions by the day. And one cool thing that you can use is like the block scanner, right? So this is base scan. And what we can do is actually see the amount of transactions, which is like 329,000, compare that to the transaction count that we got from increment, which is really close. So 329,035. So a slight delta, but not off. This is highly accurate. So that's really good for us. And we can validate that against the block scanners like base scan, Etherscan, or Arbiscan. The list goes on. And then here's like a visualization of that data. So the Cubes product launched in on February 1st. So there was kind of a beta, which you can see kind of prior to February 1st, which is like those small little kind of bars, little purple bars. Once they launched, you could see the effects and kind of the kind of explosion of growth that this product had, that the Cubes product had within the ecosystem. And this is really cool to know. And this is really important for founders to know, like the founder of Layer 3 wanted to know how Cubes did kind of, this month in terms of transactions. There's way more different types of insights that are really advanced that we may get into in another workshop. But this is at a high level, the daily transactions for the Cubes contract. Then kind of going further, more into like the technical side of kind of data manipulation. So in data science, we typically use Python for this. So some libraries are like Pandas, NumPy for that data manipulation, SciPy stats models for statistical analysis, and machine learning and AI for like using TensorFlow and PyTorch. Some graphing libraries that I personally enjoy using is Matplotlib, Seaborn, and Plotly. Plotly is really good if you want interactive plots and dashboards within like a Python environment, or you could also like utilize an API to post charts like on a web service or like a website, like a web app. So some things you can use this for, right? So you can clean and transform data with Pandas and NumPy, do the analysis with SciPy, do machine learning with like PyTorch, and then visualize the data with Plotly. And I won't go through all of these functions, but Pandas is a powerful library for data manipulation analysis, and it's the primary one that I use for more advanced analysis. So some key structures are like the series, which is like an array of data, and then like the data frame, which is like a tabular data, which is typically what I use when I'm analyzing data. So as you work with like the unified API, that data comes in as JSON data, and you could iterate over it through a series, or you could parse it with some other libraries to make it into a data frame. And yeah, this is like the backbone of Pandas, and it's really good to know this stuff because it makes it easier to work with APIs. And then I'll skip over the common Pandas functions. We're going to share this slide deck with you all, and you'll be able to see all this information. Yeah, so same with this. We don't really need to go through this, but this is basically just how you can utilize the different functions for data manipulation. But as we get into like the unified API for Covalent, so one thing to note is that Covalent has an SDK for Python, but you can also just use the direct API and use Python libraries like JSON and requests, which we'll get into. So let me go ahead and show you guys an example of some Python. So let's see. So basically what I'm doing right here is I'm getting those libraries. So the request, JSON, Pandas, get pass to hide your API key, because you guys don't want to show your API key live on camera or have people access it because they can utilize it, and it wouldn't be good for you guys. So we obfuscate that. And then what we do here is we're creating this empty list to store the data from this API. So this is the base URL for the Covalent API, right? And this is the most recent transactions. And what we're doing is we're defining this function to fetch pages of data. And then we're ingesting that response data, which is in a JSON format. And then we're parsing it by these items right here, extracting the kind of core and important information within that file. And then we're kind of breaking it using this time.sleep, which just helps us not run into API rate limit errors. And then we're turning that on to a data frame. And with that data frame, you'll get that transactional data that you might need to utilize for whatever project or research you're doing. So this is all of the recent cube data. And from there, what we can do is then visualize it using Plotly, right? So this is maybe more advanced type like visualization development, but with Plotly, you can do so much. Right. So just kind of with all this code, I was able to get a visualization that I enjoy, which is kind of this recent transactions by like minute. And this is just to show you guys what you can do with Python and with libraries like Plotly and JSON. And then from here, if you wanted to download this data as a CSV, you can using this Google Colab library. And you can kind of get all that data in an Excel file or some type of tabular format that you like. And you really get a lot of great data, like really good data with the Covalent API. So this is all of that data you get with those recent transactions. And there's ways to get a higher volume of data, but I'm just keeping it simple, hopefully. So yeah, that's kind of the Python side. Let's see. So right, so analyzing blockchain data. So challenges include like the volume of data and the structure of the data. That might be one of the more complicated things to work with as you kind of dive deeper into blockchain data. But once you get familiar with kind of how the blockchain is structured and where data lives, it becomes easier. And some analytical methods or approaches you can use, like graph analysis for visualizing transaction data or networks, time series for price trends, and there's so many other types of analytical methods you can use when analyzing blockchain data. But this is kind of what the end result is using the unified API, which is this cubes on base recent transactions by the cubes address. So some more advanced topics and future trends. So like scalability solutions is one hot topic, right? So sharding to distribute data or layer twos for faster and cheaper processing on Ethereum. Interoperability, so technologies like bridges to facilitate communications between different blockchains. Obviously, like regulation and compliance is a big one. The landscape's ever evolving. And some emerging technologies that I find interesting are like AI, IoT, data fabric, data mesh, and quantum computing. So these are just really like new ways to take an approach to analyzing data and kind of really getting all that architecture design in a way that's usable. And so anyways, so I think to move on, like just some tips for success. So some things that I've learned is like continuous learning is very important for our space. I mean, crypto and blockchain technology is rapidly evolving, so it's important to stay informed. Networking is also important, getting to know different people, attending workshops, hackathons, and connecting with professionals and enthusiasts like yourselves. So obviously getting some practical experience, so working on real world projects or contributing to open source projects to gain experience. Also like ethical considerations, like you want to not get into any kind of shady business. And also you have to be willing to show up. So doing the work and taking the time, staying focused on your mission and the values of your constituents, and those of the people you might work for or work with in the industry. Like you want to make sure you're reliable and you can show up when you need to and really provide good work. So that's it. I may have went too fast. I don't know, but I think do we have any questions?
Let's see. I think we do have some questions in the chat. If you do have any additional questions, guys, you can use the feature that's on Zoom where it says Q&A, or you can just drop it in the chat. And just for a little bit of context, this is Anthony's first workshop that he's doing. So if anybody wants to provide feedback, that would be great. But Anthony, would love if you could actually talk about your next workshop that
Yeah.
what can we expect for the next one for those who want
Yeah.
like a advanced session?
Yeah. So for the next workshop, I think we're going to focus more on decoding transactions and actually getting into the core analytical and scientific work and parts of the blockchain. So I'll be able to provide more project based things I've done with like layer 3 encryptics, and provide more like detailed and a deeper level of like what actually goes into working with these projects. And obviously, like, getting the experience, but also making money, which I'm sure is important to some of you guys. And like, we could even talk about like negotiating with project founders, or how to work with founders, which I've worked with some pretty big founders in the space. And it's just such a like just educational kind of, like, it's just really good to be able to network and work with these founders, because you learn so much from them, and it really accelerates your learning and your professional development. Um, Rather, as if you're just kind of learning online or just learning from like forums, it's really important to kind of be in the field and really learn from them and learn with like their team, which is what I've done with Cryptics and Layer 3. Like, talk to their team, talk to the founders, and really got like some good hands-on experience, and really improved my data game kind of in the space. And it's, really, it's just really fun for me as well. Like, it's just really cool to get to talk to these people and learn from them.
And also great to have you as part of the program so you can share your knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so I guess I can read the questions off to you so you can
Yeah.
answer. So Carla said, this is really great. So what's the other side that isn't the Python side?
So yeah, R is a statistical programming language. So what you can use R for is more higher volume of rows of data and more advanced analysis, because R is meant to handle extreme volumes of data. I've used R before, and for what I'm using or what I need, I really don't need to use R. Really, R is more of a scientific language, and it takes a more scientific approach to data. So it may be important if you're wanting to be on the more scientific side of analysis, of like blockchain analysis. So using machine learning, or using I don't know, whatever you might want to use it for, but it's really just for like statistical analysis at a high level.
All right, so we had a few ask for newbies, what would be a great place to start or resources to look at?
Yeah, so it's always important to look at the docs. So if you decide to use Increment as your kind of onboard into crypto data, Increment does have some really good docs on how to kind of use their platform and leverage the data that they have. Alternatively, some simpler platforms, or some more easy to use kind of getting started. First, start with like the block explorers and learning how transactions are structured, how logs are structured, and how you can interact with data utilizing like the block scanners, and then maybe kind of using the Dune, Increment, Flipside. Right, so like Dune and Flipside obviously have like a super huge community of analysts, and a lot of them really help onboard newbies to the game, I would say. Um, and then really just looking at the docs and maybe trying to network with analysts, or like the ecosystem analysts that you might want to be a part of. But it really depends, because like I said, like SQL has different types and different flavors. So like Flipside uses SnowSQL. Dune just created their own SQL for blockchain analysis, which is Dune SQL. And then Increment uses ANSI SQL, which ANSI SQL is more of like, you'll probably have a better understanding of SQL if you learn ANSI SQL, which is what Increment uses. I would say it really depends on like what you're comfortable with, but I think it would be good to start with like the fundamental SQL, which is what Increment uses, and then that would kind of help you carry on a better understanding of the different types of SQL that other data providers use.
All right, yeah, for I guess this question, I will be providing the recording onto like the Notion page. This will be on our YouTube as well. And Anthony, if it's okay, if I can ask for any other resources or links, I can actually put it to the description just for
Yeah,
everybody and access to your presentation if that's okay.
yeah, of
Um, but
course.
another question from Ghostman is, one of the challenges I found for data analytics is asking the right questions.
Yeah,
What would be some guiding questions we can use to do blockchain analytics?
yeah. So one of the fundamental principles I kind of go through, not just in like data science analytics, but just as a professional, is first principles thinking. I don't know if any of you've heard of first principles thinking, but it's basically kind of starting at the root of what you want to understand. So if you imagine like a tree, right? You have like the roots, you have the base, and you have the leaves. So I always, when I go through analytics or like forming questions, I always start at like the base, and then also you don't want to have like preconceived notions or kind of assumptions of what you think is going on. It's always important to go through kind of those first principles thinking, formulate questions, start to actually like do the work, and just try to see where you can go from there. Um, I would say like it's really important also to like validate kind of the end state. So if you go to the block scanners, right, and if you see like a contract has like, I don't know, 300,000 transactions, and what you did doesn't have 300,000 transactions, it has like 100,000, then you might need to just work your way back just to make sure you're actually like getting all the data that you need to do the analysis. But I would say like if you guys want to write down like really important framework for thinking and developing questions, I would say like first principles thinking is something that I would research if I was you guys. But that's like really helped me in my career.
Yeah, it's also one of Covalent's core values, first principles.
Okay. Yeah, first principles is important. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, I would say that's probably one of the more important things I've learned just in general.
All right, another question from Miracle is, please, can you explain how to pull blockchain data from Covalent with Python?
Yeah, so there's two different ways you can pull covalent data in Python. So I probably should have mentioned the tool I use. So the tool I use is Google Colab. So it's let's see, it should be the yeah. So so colab.research.google. This is probably the easiest way for you guys to get started. I'm sure most of us have Google accounts, maybe, and This is free to use with Google, and it's just a really easy way to get started. Some more advanced kind of tools you can use are like Anaconda, and they have like different IDEs, Python IDEs that you can use. But just to get started, I would say use collab.research.google.com, and you could either use the SDK or you could just use the straight kind of API link from Covalent, which you'd be able to get. So, like, if you go to the docs, let's see. So, show you guys real quick. So, let's see. And so, what you would need to do, just the way that I'm doing it here. So, you could go to the supported chains, and then we'll go to base. And then, like, for example, this endpoint, so we can use this wallet address. So this endpoint right here, which is token balances by address, just input that there and give it the denomination, which is like USD is what I use since I'm in America, or wherever you guys, whatever like currency you prefer. Um, let's see. So I might not be able to authenticate right now since I'm on this call, but basically I can show you with just with this link. Um, so this is going to say like 401 not found, but that's because we have to input our API key right here. So I have this obfuscated, right? It's always important to obfuscate your API key because you could get like if you leak your API key, they like people can utilize it. It's not good. It's not good to give people that access. But basically, so this quote right here, so this link, this is kind of how the API is structured, and then uh, Covalent has these really helpful parameters that you could kind of utilize, and then what would happen once you kind of get all those parameters correct, it would you can see this response right here. So with this response, it would let you click out to this link, right? So this link, this would have your API key and then all the JSON data you would be able to see. Then that JSON data, what you want to do is bring that JSON data into Colab, and you would use these libraries to do that, which we'll share. This might be a little advanced, like for beginners, but you can kind of replicate the code I have here to start to pull data. And then once you get that JSON data in, I could actually maybe show you guys how that JSON data looks. So, oh, let's see if I can do it. So this is just like a little script I built to like hide your API key, but let's see. Actually, one second. JSON data looks like um, when you're using the API. So, but yeah. So, anyways, if you need like more help with this, just message me.
All right. I see, Luis, your hand is up. I can invite you to speak if you have a question. Oh, never mind. Is there any other questions? You can type it into the chat below. Uh, okay, Miracle
Uh,
said in your DM.
okay. I could also, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, Jackie. I mean, I can show them some of the projects I've worked on like Dune, if that gives some clarity to what it is that I do.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
I can show you guys. Okay. So right now, I'm freelancing for Cryptics and Layer 3. So I'll show you guys the Cryptics dashboard because Layer 3, like we haven't really like the cubes dashboard we haven't released yet. Um, so I'll kind of show you what I do for Cryptics. So Cryptics is a DeFi protocol, and they kind of mainly focus on perpetuals on like EVM smart contracts. So they utilize, I don't know how many of you are familiar with like pricing oracles, but they utilize Peeth and Chainlink as their pricing oracle. And what I built for them is this dashboard to understand what's going on in their ecosystem. So um, with their product, so Cryptics V2, they want to know what the volume is, how much fees have been generated. They want to know a breakout of each market. So they have different markets within their protocol. They wanted to break it down by fees. So you have like LPs and you have the traders, and then they want to know how many unique traders and unique LPs they have, which LPs are like liquidity providers. And in the perennial cryptics kind of ecosystem, they call it takers and makers. They also like want to know the retention. So like are people kind of coming back on the platform, or are people staying on the platform? They want to know like their open interest metrics, right? So how many people are long, short, and how many people are like liquidity providers. And this is like a visualization that kind of details that for them. And then this is just like some like trade kind of, how many trades are being made, like how many trades all the time, how many trades per person are being made. So like one trade, 3,000 people. For 642 people have made between 2 and 3 trades, and like 328 people have made more than 6 trades. And then this right here is just kind of um, all of their transactions on their product. So if I click into this query, like this might look a little crazy, but so this is one query that I worked for them. And kind of as you get more advanced, you'll start to understand what questions you need to ask, or as you have like more clarity on a protocol or on a project, it'll kind of make it easier for you guys to see what's going on. It's always important to like ask their devs or the founder, like for like some validation. That's one thing that I've done. So asking their team, like, hey, what are you guys looking for? How should this be structured? What should we expect? Um, data wise. But yeah, so this is like 1,000 lines, and this took me like, I mean, it's continuously being iterated, but like initially it took me like a month to do for them. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Uh, Jackie, back to you.
No, no worries. This is great. This is awesome.
Okay,
Um, this is something that I think you already provided to me the
I've
two
said,
documents that
yeah,
um, you built with Dune.
yes,
So can I add that into the
yeah.
details for the
Yeah, you can. Yep. Yeah. So Dune utilize a Dune SQL, which is an abstracted Trino SQL. If anybody's familiar with like Trino SQL, it's Dune SQL is based on Trino SQL. Just a fun fact if anybody wanted to know that.
So Ghostman asks, are open interest data available in Covalent? So I'm not the best person to ask about that
Yeah, I
one.
mean, all the data on the blockchain is available through Increment. It's just and I'm not sure exactly if this project is decoded yet on Increment, but Increment does have some open interest metrics. But what you would do if it's not on there is you would have to like decode all of that log data uh and that project data to get open interest metrics if Increment doesn't already have it decoded. So, but also that would be maybe a question for, I'm not sure who like leads or like the Increment team, but they would probably have more clarity on that. But I mean, you could get to all this data using Increment. It's just you wouldn't have to know how to decode transactions and logs.
I can definitely ask Niall and Gurjo. But for those again that kind of missed the other workshop or what I've mentioned, the team is currently working on revamping Increment. So there might be some features like tweaks here and there. but we'll announce things once Nal has more updates, and there will be a lot more bounties on this, and hopefully more workshops, and we can get more like partners to do workshops on like how they use increment. So it's very helpful for you guys. But yeah, any other last minute questions? Any other closing thoughts, Anthony?
No, I'm also a newbie to increment. So like no worries if you're like intimidated by, getting started. I think what's important is just to remember to read the docs and kind of validate through the block scanners or through other sources of validation you guys might know of. But it's always important to like get started. So just get started, I would say.
Love it, love it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
for the who wants an alchemist, if you're interested in joining the program, it just covers different venues depending on what you want to learn in Web3 for like personal and professional
Mhm.
means. But there
Yeah.
are and like quizzes that we do just on basics on increments. And the one, our backend dev who manages a lot of increment and working on a lot of features has dedicated
Yeah.
some office hours bi-weekly to answer any questions that you guys have about increments. So
Yeah.
look to organize a workshop with him, which we're very excited to do. But Anthony, very, very
Awesome.
thankful that you were able to
Of
do this
course.
workshop and share your knowledge. And I'm pretty sure people are very excited to have like the really advanced one. I feel like I'm going to be super
Oh
lost.
yeah. Oh, hopefully. Yeah, I think I guess yeah, one also important thing I could say is like I got my start in doing crypto bounties and that led to like, a career and like a way to make additional money on the side on top of like my full-time job. So I would say definitely do the bounties because they're gonna like accelerate your learning and also like you're incentivized to do the bounty. So you have like kind of more of a stake in learning, if you win the bounty. But it's always good to attempt it, even if you don't win it. I mean, when I first got started, I did like hundreds of bounties and I've won some and lost some, but it's important to, just get started. So
Yeah, they say like the best investment where you can never lose is an investment in yourself. That's what Ganesh
yeah,
says.
yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it really is, right? Because, yeah, I mean, I didn't think I'd be able to get to the level I am like now, like a few years ago. And obviously, like I read, before, like I guess, like before, like all, like we had all these resources. Like I actually like read a book on blockchain analytics, like a book like this thick when I got started. And there wasn't like a lot of data providers like there are now, which makes it way easier to kind of access this data. So that's kind of like really good too. But it's also good to learn the fundamentals. So I would always start with like the basics. So learning SQL, learning Python, and then kind of learning, analysis techniques, learning, data design techniques. And, there's a bunch, I mean, like data analytics in like science is so large, right? It's like, there's so many things you can do, but yeah, I mean, just get started. It's important. And like, yeah, like Jackie said, invest in yourself, like invest the time, and it will pay off. I mean, you'll know. And this is one thing like my grandpa always told me. So I grew up with my grandparents, but one thing he always told me is like, Anthony, no one can ever take your education away from you. So
Hopefully. Um, so what I'll do is, okay, we'll close the webinar off, but I'll be reposting I guess like a recap that I did for our last workshop too. So
yeah,
you guys will be able to see that recap, access like the recording and stuff. And then I'll ask you guys to see if there's any other additional topics you'd like Anthony to do.
yeah,
And let's see if it's okay for him to do
yeah.
this. But yeah, thank you again. And super excited to provide this for people who weren't able to attend. They were like messaging me saying, hey, is this going to be available? Yeah, thanks
Awesome.
again. And
Thanks,
great to,
Jackie.
yeah, to see you and meet you.
You too. You too. You too. I